Very kind in your introductions. Also, thank you to Satish ji. Thank you, Chirag bhai and Rasik bhai for getting this organized. I'll just give a two-line introduction about JLL for those of you who don't know about JLL. So we are a team of 12,000 people who basically advise owners, occupiers, and investors, 12,000 people in India. And last year, our revenues in India was 4,135 crores. So that's a little bit about us. So we advise owners, investors, and occupiers of real estate in India. So the format I was thinking of today was talking about multiple asset classes. I'll talk about office. I'll talk about residential. I'll talk about retail. I'll talk about industrial, hotels. I'll also talk about what's happening in the investment world. So that's all the asset classes and how it's kind of changing thanks to COVID-19. So that's the topic for today. So let's start with office and then move to residential. The market fundamentals are still landlord favorable for the office market with very low vacancies and not much of supply coming between now and 2022. Occupiers are committed but still postponing major decisions by at least 4 weeks. Deals are on pause mode but not on cancel mode. This is what we are seeing right now. We are also seeing that occupiers are not doing any knee-jerk reactions, which is important. We have seen in some of the asset classes where occupiers have had a very knee-jerk kind of reactions. We have also seen that under construction projects, which are going to get delayed because of labor availability. We're also seeing fit-outs getting delayed, mainly because of supply chain challenges from Southeast Asia and China, and that's going to have an obvious impact on the office real estate market. Over the last 2 weeks, we have also seen some clients of ours who are using hotels from a business continuity planning point of view. I've never seen that. Many clients are saying, let me take 10 rooms, 20 rooms in a hotel if I need to run a backup a place for my office. Co-working players have already, co-working is a very low margin business. They've already started asking rental relief from landlords. We believe whatever is happening in the last 3 weeks is a big global experiment on remote working. We have also seen that smaller deals have been put on hold, and some tenants have started talking about force majeure clauses to try and see how they can postpone rentals. So this is what we are seeing in the short term. Now let's look at what we are going to see in the medium term. When I mean by medium term, what do we expect to see in the next 3 to 4 months? What we are seeing is anyone with an expansion plan who is not driven by an event date is pressing the pause button, and he's going to be cautious. So if you don't have an event date, people are saying, okay, let me wait and watch. For leases which are already under discussions, we feel landlords will offer a few freebies to speed in and close the transactions fast. What we feel is delayed decision making is going to be the biggest challenge for the office sector, curtailed by capital expenditures. Today, people don't want to spend big capital expenditure on their interiors. You know, to build a good office building, you spend around 3,500 rupees. The minimum you spend on doing interiors is also 3,000 rupees. We know companies who spend 10,000, companies who spend 6,000. A lot of companies at least spend 3,000 rupees on interiors. So they're saying, I want to postpone this capital expenditure even if I'm taking a new office. Landlords, we believe in the next 3 months, they won't waste time negotiating smaller issues, and they will ensure deals get closed. We feel in 3 months' time, companies like us will get a lot of inquiries from occupiers who don't want to increase when the renewal comes up, they don't want to increase their rentals. We believe that inquiries will start coming. We'll also start seeing inquiries on lease restructuring and how companies like us can help in cost saving. So we believe this will happen in the next 3 months. We also believe landlords will become more open to discuss early renewals, leases which are coming up for renewal in the next 2 years or 1 year. Landlords will come back, tenants will come back and say, okay, I want to renew it, renew the lease, but I don't want to pay the escalation, which is due 1 or 2 years later. You keep the same rental or reduce the rental a little bit. So we believe there'll be a lot of those kind of discussions happening. We believe new occupiers, the new occupiers who are going to who are going to look for space now, will get better deals from landlords than the occupiers' tenants who did deals in 2019. Renewals will increase instead of new space. A lot of clients will say, I'll rather renew because again, the same idea of to preserve cash and to delay capex. This year, we were actually estimating around 48 million square feet of office supply to come in. This is new completions. We believe at least 25% of this will get pushed to next year because of two reasons. One, construction delays because workers are not there, and two, liquidity challenges which all of us are facing. We also feel occupiers will look for longer, what we have the rent-free period, which they do for fit-outs. We believe they'll ask for longer rent-free fit-out periods, which for obvious reasons. We also feel distressed space will come into the market in the next few months. Previously, force majeure and rent abatement, these are typical two standard clauses which are there in lease agreements. Nobody used to even look at it. It was just a standard clause. It was lawyers' language. Nobody used to look at it. But going forward, we believe force majeure clause and rent abatement clause will become extremely important, and they'll be fiercely debated between the landlord and the tenant. Corporate, again, would think hard before making new capex on interiors. They would, occupiers, we believe, will start renegotiations in the next 3 to 6 months. Right now, people are waiting and watching. What do we feel will happen in the long run? When I mean long run, what will happen maybe after a year or so in the office sector? We feel when the market recovers, office sector will be the first one to recover. This we have seen across the world. Whenever there is a downturn and when things start coming up, the first sector which starts coming up is office sector. I still remember in 2008, office absorption was 32 million square feet. In 2009, it went to 20 million square feet. Big drop from 32 million square feet to 20 million square feet. And from 20, it straight went to 33 million square feet again in 2010. So office has the ability to bounce back. That's the first thing. Second is, I believe rental growth is going to be soft. Over the last 7 years, the India office market has been seeing a dream run. We are not going to see that dream run in terms of rental growth. Every year we are seeing rental growth of 4 to 8%. We are not going to see that. We believe there will be accelerated adoption of work from home policies. People are getting used to work from home, and that's definitely going to have an impact. I'll touch upon it a little later on where we see the impact. Over the last few years, we saw a lot of companies densify their offices. What I mean by densification is putting more number of people in the same set of office space. So previously companies used to have 150 square foot per person, then it made it 120, then it became 100. Off late, a lot of companies do 80 square foot per person. And co-working place even went to 60 square foot per person. So that's what the trend we call densification. We believe going forward, densification will become de-densification. So that's something which we can expect. Along with de-densification, we'll also see cellularization. What we mean by cellularization is breaking each of these offices into smaller units and making like a small cells, which people, again, because of social distancing, people not wanting to discuss, sit and interact with a lot of other people. I think in the next few months, the focus on safety, health and wellness will become more than ever before. Safety, health and wellness of buildings, office buildings will become more than ever before. Companies will reduce density. Like I said, it will move to 80 square foot, 60 square foot per person. They will change that. They will adjust that. They will increase the density mainly to make sure there is no transmission of diseases. Office utilization rates will also fall. Companies are not going to look at putting everybody in the same space. And landlords who have exposure to short-term leases without lock-ins are vulnerable in today's times. A lot of big developers I saw post 2008-9 crash. Previously, they wouldn't ask for lock-ins after 3 years. Typically, leases till 2008-9 used to have a 3-year lock-in with a 3-month exit period. Post 2008-9, the big lesson the landlords learned was every time there is a lease renewal, they would ask for another lock-in of 3 years. And in that, they used to also ask for a 6-month kind of lease termination notice period. So they were protecting themselves for the next period. We'll see that happening more. Rising employment in relevant sectors. There are a lot of new sectors which are expected to come up. OTT companies, pharma companies, online education, e-commerce, med tech, real prop tech. A lot of such new sectors will emerge, which will also look for space. So that employment coming from that will actually neutralize any space which is going to become vacant. We believe things like cleaning used to be seen as a very normal low-end activity, but enhanced cleaning is going to become very, very important for office buildings. More distancing, that is more space between people, and companies will ask for increased choices. Again, these are some of the things which we can expect. Also, what we can expect is sustainability and wellness features will become very, very important. High quality property management is going to become very important for offices. And another thing which we are expecting is offices will look at splitting offices into 2 or 3 different locations in a city. In the last 10 years, what we have seen is everybody was consolidated. If they had 3 offices in 3 parts, they would bring it into one location. We believe that's going to change. People are going to look at, can I have 2 or 3 different offices, again from a business continuity planning. Business continuity planning as a concept, we believe will become a very, very important part of strategic planning for any company. And that's been, a lot of companies have realized, in spite of all their business continuity planning, what's happened in the last 3 weeks, they've seen so many gaps which are there. So that's going to become a very, very important issue in any strategic planning activity. We also believe companies from Europe, most of the business in India used to come from companies from the US. But we believe going forward, a lot of corporates from Europe will start looking at India from a BCP point of view, given all the challenges Europe is facing right now. I think Europe will start exporting a lot more business into India, which will help the Indian office sector. Companies who are losing contracts, they will end up surrendering space. One needs to be ready for that. I feel today there are 400 co-working operators. There is no room for 400 players in the market. Many co-working operators will end up giving their space back to the landlords, and the landlords may end up taking that space and end up operating their own co-working. So this is something we believe will happen. We will also see good, decent demand for flexible working spaces closer to the neighborhood. Previously, most co-working players are closer to CBDs and SBDs or market secondary business district. We believe going forward, they will also move to small neighborhood centers, again, from a business continuity planning point of view. Work will become a lot more flexible. Previously, if someone would have come and asked us, can I work from home? You know what the reaction would have been. That'll change post this. We will let people work from home because as companies will become flexible. What companies will also look at is different areas where people can focus and concentrate and work, different areas within an office where people can collaborate, different places in an office where people can learn, and different places in an office where people can breathe, just have breathing space. So there would be clusters like this being formed in all offices. Previously, we would do everything in the same space. Now we will believe going forward, there would be clusters coming. We believe work from home won't be an immediate threat to office demand, mainly because companies who over the last few years have done a very high utilization rates. And because they are already utilized and dense, and they've driven a lot of efficiencies. So there's no room for driving in more efficiency. So that is something because of which we believe. And all the newer industries which are coming up, that will also contribute to office demand. What is my advice to the developers and landlords in this from an office point of view? I'm sure many of you have done office or do planning office, or because it's an asset class which has done really well in the last 7 years. Probably the best asset class in the country. My advice to landlords, please actively maintain your properties. In spite of all these challenges, don't lose focus on maintaining property, actively maintain it. If you have high quality tenants, even if they're coming for renegotiation, please retain them. They also have business challenges. Companies today are going to be again run by CFOs. Last 7-8 years, we've seen HR heads run companies, but going forward, it's going to be CFOs who are going to be running the companies. Also assess supplier and contractor risk. You may have different suppliers giving different work in your building. Assess that. Does your supplier have the long-term capacity to work with you? Be proactive to avoid negative absorption. Don't let negative absorption come. So if you're losing a tenant of 10,000 square feet or 50,000 square feet, make sure that 10,000 and 50,000 square feet is immediately filled up. Don't let your building lie vacant. Protect and enhance your value. Start thinking of how can I invest a little bit in my building if you have some money, so that you can upgrade it. Because in India, we have seen many buildings which are only 5 years old look like they're 10 years old or 20 years old. So this is a good time to upgrade your buildings. Please adapt to a changed investment climate. I know a lot of times everyone in the sector, including people like me, we get into the denial mode, but we need to accept the fact that the investment climate is going to change. I'm sure many of you saw what happened in 2001, 2, and many of you saw what happened in 2008, 9. That's the kind of investment climate which is going to come. Partner with service providers who have a good track record. Build liquidity wherever you can. Please preserve liquidity and assess regulatory risk. There are going to be lots of new rules coming. We've already seen some state governments come and say, okay, in F&B, only so many people can sit in a table. Some state governments have passed rules on multiplexes saying between every 2 seats there has to be 1 space. So all these kind of new things is happening. So please assess regulatory risk very closely. Don't find shortcuts on the regulatory part. And this is the biggest lesson I learned from 2001 to slowdown and 2008-9. Please focus on your core business. You can't be the best developer in hotels. You can't be the best developer in office. You can't be the best developer in retail, the best in industrial, everything. Please stay fully focused on your core part. And am I audible?
Yes, you carry on.
Okay,
carry on, yes.
Please stay focused on your core business. Don't look at more than 1 or 2 asset classes. Don't look at more than 1 or 2 locations. We have seen how everybody wanted to be a pan-India developer in 2008, and post that everybody went back to their home territories and started focusing on core business. One of the best developers in the country today office developers in the country today is someone named RMZ. Many of you in South have heard of RMZ, but he's probably the best. They're probably the best office developers. He focuses only on one asset class. They do only office, and what they do is with the best office buildings. Wherever they go, they do the best office buildings. So I think that's the lesson going forward. Just focus on one asset class and maybe 2 max, and in your home region where you're most comfortable with. Look at what DLF did. DLF, given the size, DLF could have gotten to many challenges, but look at what they have done. They've started fully focused on their rental business, and today they do residential, but they do residential only in one market now, which is their home territory. After in NCR, other than that, they don't do residential. And look at the office and all the challenges which DLF has faced in the last 10 years. They've been able to come out because they focused on office. Today they make 10 crores rental a day. 10 crores rental a day, which is 3,600 crores just as the rental income which they're making. That's again happened only because they focused. DLF was not so focused before 2008. They were trying to do everything. They wanted to do 50 cities hotels. They wanted to do 50 residential projects. All that changed post 2008, and they started focusing on only residential in their home market and office in the top 4-5 cities in the country. So again, a lesson to learn in terms of core business. A lot of you may be wondering what is going to happen to the co-working sector. Very important, because co-working, which is nobody had heard of co-working 3 years back. But last year, 15% of the space across India was taken by the co-working sector. So it's very important to see how to look at the co-working sector. Co-working sector will have to change as an industry. The typical densification model, what they have done, that's not going to work. Co-working providers are trying to, have already started asking for rent waivers. Like I said, they're already offering their occupiers, which are tenants within the co-working, good discounts for them to stay or expand. Co-working industry will be definitely be impacted by the distancing and the community aspect. Another big challenge that the co-working industry faces is when you go to a co-working center, you don't know who are the people you're going to be working. That's the very essence of co-working, the community feeling. When you go to your office, you know who are the people you're sitting next to. That's another challenge which the co-working industry will have to face. So co-working industry will have to rearrange their common areas and will have to encourage social distancing between in their centers. We believe there will be also smaller co-working centers opening, like I said, in peripheral areas closer to neighborhood. But again, co-working players, many of them are struggling today on investing on capex. So as a sector, I believe the sector will slow down. But the good news for co-working sector is most companies today will not want to invest in capex, and they are going to be looking for flexibility. And these are the two things which co-working industry provides. So if they can do that, they will end up doing very well in the coming few months. Everybody has been talking from work from home. Our belief is work from home can take a maximum of 10% of the office demand from technology companies and around 5% of the office demand from operations companies. Operations companies, what I mean is BPOs. Now, why am I saying that? There is a high degree of dependency on this entire sector on office infrastructure. Okay, now we are getting used to working from home over the last 3 weeks, but still there is a lot of dependence on office infrastructure. What is today, I know of a company which actually, one of our clients, they ordered 30,000 UPSs last week. Not ordered, they procured 30,000 UPSs and gave it to all their employees. They procured 30,000 screens and gave it to their employees. Now, those are expensive hardware. It's not easy. Second, SEZ and STPI, most companies in India, IT companies, either are an SEZ or an STPI, they have regulatory bonding obligations. Okay, right now the government is being flexible, but that's not going to be continue forever. So that bonding obligations is something we need to look at. Data speed is a challenge. I'm sure many of you are not seeing me very clearly. I'm sure I'm not able to see many people clearly. Data speed is still a challenge. As a country in India, we don't have study rooms. That's still a big challenge. Joint family, a lot of people stay as joint families. There are cultural issues and sound quality. The acoustics quality in working from home is not so great. These are typical challenges because of which work from home will have its own challenges. There will be also look at aspects like firewalls, data confidentiality, client proprietary technology. All those are things again which will also have an impact. So these are things which I feel will be challenges for work from home going forward. One thing I thought I should talk about is some of the learnings from China, and all these learnings are not from reading Chinese media, but this is from talking to my colleagues in China. In the last 1 week, I've spoken to my counterpart, who's the MD of our China business. I've also spoken to the heads of Shanghai and Beijing, and this is what I heard from them. They've said if pre-corona Chinese residential sales was 100, it had gone to 0, and now it's come to a 50% mark, which is a good thing for us. From 100 it went to 0 and it has come back to 50. This is something they say. They also say that 70 to 80% of the employees in China have got back to work. 70 to 80% of the Chinese employees have gotten back to work, but everyone is wearing a mask. Traffic over the last 2 weeks has been negatively impacted because people are not taking public transport because they're scared to travel publicly. They're taking cars and going, which has led to more traffic jams. Shopping malls, most of the shopping malls are open. One interesting trend they're seeing is as multinationals are being a little risk averse and being a little conservative, they're seeing a trend that a lot of Chinese companies are being very, very active and looking at office space. They feel this is the best ever time to go get space in China. This also, the second half of March, they've seen good improvements. There is restrictions on face-to-face meetings. So a lot of people are still doing online. We as a company are doing inspections using virtual reality and live streaming. Deals don't get concluded very fast, but at least it gives a psychological comfort to the landlords that, okay, there is some activity happening. I asked this question, what is the activity levels? When I mean by activity levels, meetings, inspections, my MD of China, he told it's back to a 55% mark. So if it was 100 before, it's back to a 55 to 60% mark. He believes it will go to a 70 and it will stay there. We have already started seeing rental falls in Chinese office market, and occupiers have started asking for lease restructuring. So these are some of the things happening in China on the office front. Now let's go to residential markets. The other day someone was saying an optimist is somebody who believes tomorrow is going to be better than today. It's very important to be optimistic for all of us. I know there are lots of challenges outside. The same person was also saying an optimist is someone who feels today's challenges are tomorrow's opportunities. Someone who feels today's challenges are tomorrow's opportunities. I think that's the way to think going forward. What is so different about 2008 and 2020? We had the big global financial crisis. At that time, if you remember, it was a very overheated valuation game which was happening. There was all kind of private equity buying funds, 100 acres in Ludhiana, 50 acres in Madurai, 30 acres in Trichy. Everybody, there was so much of FDI coming in. Valuations are overheated. Compared to that today, the valuations are very realistic. That's one thing. It's a big difference from back then. Back then, there was a lot of speculators in the residential market. I used to know people in Bombay. There were some diamond guys who used to own 50 apartments in Bombay. That's become end users now. So speculators with that time versus end users today. Sellers, it used to be a very sellers market back then. Developer would call you. He'll tell you, I'm increasing the price in the next 1 week. If you want, you book. Even if you went back at the 6th day, prices would have gone up. Today, it is a very buyer's market. Back then, thanks to the BJP government, we didn't have too many tax benefits. Whether it was the PMIY scheme, all the tax benefits which are there, at least for the affordable housing segment, back then was not there. There was a lot of worry about speculators and speculative fear back then, which is not there. I was checking the home loan rates. By 2010, in many parts, 2009-10, home loan rates were more than 9.5%. Today, it's SBI has announced 7.15. Again, a good thing for the market. If you remember back then, everybody used to do luxury home projects. Every developer's only thing was luxury, luxury, luxury. Not enough people were doing relevant home projects, which is happening today. Everyone who's doing a project today is looking at doing relevant project, which is budget friendly, which is focused on end users. Again, a good thing. So from super luxury, it's become relevant. The good thing is the government has been very prompt in announcing some fiscal measures. What we hear from various authorities within CREDAI is there'll be a lot more happening from the government, and I'm sure you've also been hearing that. We were also, as a residential sector, today we are not dependent on any global funds. If you look at all the foreign direct money which is coming to India, that's all gone into office or industrial. Very, very less money has actually come to residential. So again, that is not a worry because there's not much of money anyway coming from foreign funds. NBFCs also, whatever corrections had to happen has happened. Whatever NBFCs had to go bust have gone bust. Whoever had to reduce their lending books, that has also happened. So I think that NBFC mess also is more or less over. Things can't get worse than this. There's one challenge which I saw. The residential market, which we just the quarter which got over, that quarter was the second worst quarter in the residential market, which is the first quarter calendar year of March, Jan to March, was the second worst quarter in after first calendar quarter of 2017. And we all know what happened in 2017 first quarter. All the mess. November 2016 was demonetization and all that mess which happened post that. So this was probably the second worst quarter after that. Good news, SBI rate cuts. That's a very good, great thing for the residential sector. We believe whatever is happening in the stock markets, all the volatility, not everyone is going to come back into the residential market, but at least many of them will start thinking of how to come back into the residential market. Affordability is definitely going to go up by 10 to 15% because home loan rates are headed towards 7% mark. I think within no time, home loan rates will be 7% mark. People will have to start emulating SBI. Others will have to go there. Or what will happen is there would be a lot of refinancing of your mortgage home owners who will move towards SBI. Luxury market, we believe again will get hit, and we've seen that getting hit all the time whenever there is slowdown in the market. We also today people are very cautious in their spending. As like I spoke, relevant market they would look at. We believe with this currency depreciation, the NRI community will start looking, but also we need to worry that the NRI community they will closely wait and watch how India is going to handle the situation. So that's very important. Again, my request to developers on this call: if you're very good in residential, stay focused in residential. Maybe think of one asset class in a small way. Don't get into anything big. Again, that focus, single asset focus, becomes very important. New launches also in the first quarter we saw a drop in that. government needs to play a very active role. We again, project delays was reducing thanks to RERA. But we again believe, thanks to all these events happening and with laborers and all that, project delays will again start into the market all over again. What else are we seeing on the residential front? We believe there will be a bounce back, which could happen in the next 6 months, mainly driven by the stimulus provided by the government. Government has to look at stimulus on real estate. I'm sure it's a smart government. They're looking at what governments like China, like what US did post 2008-9, and I'm sure they will learn from that. Government will give a lot of stimulus. I think that will help the sector bounce back maybe after 6 months. Lockdown needs to be lifted, and that's the only way we can help the economy kind of pick up. I'm sure the government is smart, and they will make sure lockdown is in China. What we saw, I said globally, when we have seen downturns, the sector which bounces back first is office. In China, what we have seen is the sector which is bounced back first is the residential sector. So obviously, last 2-3 weeks, sales activities come very close to zero in many places. Concerns on receivables is on the moratorium period. That's going to be a challenge how different banks kind of end up managing that. Flight of investment to India from fund managers. Please don't expect any equity money coming into residential sector. It'll be going to be very limited. An entire focus of these funds are going to be preserving capital or going back to their home country and investing. Also remember, a lot of pension funds and sovereign funds which came in, these money is going to be called back by these countries. The sovereign funds will need money there for investing in various efforts by the government to solve their own corona issues. So I also feel RBI could look at a one-time restructuring for NPAs. I'm sure the CREDAI senior group is lobbying for that. Without that, there's going to be a lot of challenges. So I'm sure the RBI will look at that. Negatives, everyone knows. Priorities, when I'm worried about my life, will I look at buying a home? When I'm worried about losing my job, will I worry about a home? When I'm worried about a salary cut, will I worry about a home? That's something which we need to live in. And that's exactly the reason why the lockdown needs to be taken up and the sector has to kind of come back. Cash flow delays will again cause disruption. Like I said, projects will get delayed. Construction progress is going to be a challenge. If there is a hit in commercial leasing activity, we have seen whenever the commercial leasing activity does well, and the two markets which were the last two markets to slow down, every market is slowed down now, but till 2 years back, Pune and Bangalore markets were doing reasonably well on the residential front. And the main reason for those two markets doing reasonably well in the residential front was both these markets had very robust commercial leasing activity. So if we start seeing a drop in leasing activity, I believe that will also have an impact on residential, because that just shows that enough jobs are not being created. Launches are going to be vital for the sector. We need to, I don't think many launches will happen, but the launches need to kind of come back. Transmission of the repo rates, reverse repo has to happen by the HFCs. Today, a lot of HFCs haven't passed the kind of things which SBI is doing. I think that has to happen. I'm sure there will be pressure from the government also to do that. Going forward, huge amount of consolidation will happen. Not good news for the smaller developers, but consolidation will happen. Corporate developers will will do well. I've heard even in the last 20 days, some of the corporate developers have done well. Gradual gradation in pricing. Even if you have to drop your pricing, please drop it a little bit and gradually take it forward. But show some sales. I think dollar appreciation, NRIs coming back is important. Now let's look at the retail market. We believe the rents expected to come down. Retailers, there's a lot of pressure from retailers to the mall owners to reduce rentals, to give rent abatements. Landlords are looking at, some landlords would end up announcing temporary rental cuts and rebates. Landlords today, their decision is based on a lot of data. When this happened in 2008-9, there was not enough data for landlords to take decisions. But today, given all the IT systems which retail mall developers have, they can take very data-driven decisions, which tenant to keep, which tenant not to keep. Completion timelines for mall projects again will get delayed for obvious reasons, and also a lot of interiors in retail projects. The interior materials are procured from China, and there is delay from that, ports, all that. So shipping has been impacted. So that'll again delay. Property management on hygiene will become very, very important. The hygiene of malls become very important as people start going back to malls. Good news is China malls have opened. Hopefully, India will also open up. Shift to e-commerce is expected to happen, and that's going to put a great pressure on landlords. So landlords need to think and look at how e-commerce the last 3 weeks has shown that a lot of people will rely on e-commerce. I know e-commerce is also stuck, but once the sector comes back, there will be a lot of online shopping happening than ever before. So landlords need to give those special shopping experiences if they need to make their centers work. What are the impact of retailers of this COVID? Some are trying to launch their own apps for placing orders. Not too many of them are focusing on apps because penetration in India of still online is only 4%. In US, it's touched close to 15-16%. In India, it's only 4% online. They are trying to set up their apps. Some of them will go ahead with properties which are under fit outs. We've got a lot of people who have come back and tell us, I'm not looking at expansions this year. I want to just look at this year only from a consolidation point of view. Many will go very slow and at least on new signing. Some big retailers are saying, I'll do a BTS, which is coming after 2 years, but I'll pay a small token amount. That's what they're saying. Retailers have, many retailers have, see the top 5-6 retailers contribute to a lot of space in malls. So obviously they've come together and they have been pushing developers from on a force majeure issue to give them rent waivers. We believe there will be lots of litigations on that aspect going forward. Right now, both sides are acting tough. Both sides are acting tough. Personally, what my retail teams tell me based on their conversations with retailers, they're not very hopeful, at least till Diwali, for sales to pick up. They also feel they would be increasing the warehousing capacity to cater to the current online need. Stores that are scheduled to open, where capex has already been invested, we believe they will resume operations post lockdown. Most retailers feel 60 to 70% of their sales is going to get hit, and there would be a new set of omni-channel. And what do you mean by omni-channel is basically online and offline emerging, especially in the grocery and fresh food market going forward. Other retailers, we believe premium lifestyle, premium retailers, lifestyle retailers, electronics retailers, their growth is going to be quite sluggish coming back, obviously because people are going to delay their purchase. Value fashion we believe will be the first to revive. Electronics is going to be slow, like I said. Home furnishing is also going to be slow. Restaurants is going to go through a lot of challenges. We believe many restaurants may end up shutting shop. Many of them will face difficulty in paying rents unless landlords are flexible. The revenue share dynamics will totally have to change in the retailing industry because most of them are doing a minimum guarantee and revenue share. But that's going to change now. It's everything, all those formulas will have to change. F&B in corridors. There'll be a lot of F&B in highways, in the main streets. All that is going to also suffering for obvious reasons. People are not traveling from one place to the other. Multiplex are going to be the most hit. It will also be the last ones to open once the lockdown ends. Also, there will be multiple governments which will go about making new rules on seating to reduce in a auditorium. Look at the priorities of a retailer today. His first priority is, can I pay my salaries to employees? That's his first priority. Second priority is, can I pay my supply chain guys? People who are supplying me. If I'm a grocery retailer, can I pay my Unilever on time to get close up and surf and rin to my stores? That's the second priority. Third priority is, can I pay rentals on time to my landlord? That's only the third priority. Fourth priority is, whatever existing projects which I'm handling, can I complete it? And the fifth and the last priority will be new expansion. So I'm not confident about any new expansions coming out of retail going forward. What are we seeing in hotels? There is, thanks to all the advisories, restrictions, lockdowns, growth recovery is going to be very slow in the hotels. I feel hotels and the retail are the sectors which are going to be most impacted from COVID-19. Market recovery will slowly happen only once the travel restrictions are lifted across the world. All major events and high profile events across the world have been cancelled. We've been reading that in the press. There is a lot of consumer hesitation to travel, which we'll see in the medium term also. Not everything will happen. International vacations will reduce. People will say, instead of an international vacation, shall I do a domestic staycation? That is, go to a hotel and stay domestically. In Mumbai, from Bandra, I go to Juhu and stay in a staycation. There's the new things which will happen. Markets with the highest international visitors will be the markets which will get impacted most, because obviously of the air travel challenges. Locations which are accessible to domestic audience, which are the tourist destinations in India, which people can reach taking a car, driving for 3 or 5 or 6 hours. Those locations will do well. Return to normalcy is going to take some time. Locations which are epicenters, where there is more of corona cases, that will take more time to recover. We believe this next 2 quarters is going to be extremely difficult. Also, please remember the work from home and all these Zooms and collaborative technologies which have come, WebEx and Zooms and Microsoft Teams and all that. That will also have an impact on hotel from a business traveler point of view, because business travel will reduce, because this year the companies are all going to put travel restrictions, not just because of COVID, but also to save money, because this year's P&L is very important, and that will also have a big impact, because discretionary travel will definitely reduce going forward. So that's another thing which we're seeing in the hotels. Currently, in India, what we're seeing, more than 50% of the branded hotels are shut. A few hotels close to in close proximity to hospitals are providing quarantine facilities. In the first week of March, there was 12% drop in occupancy. The second week of March, that became 44%. The third week of March, 67%. I've not got the figures of fourth week of March. I'm sure it's going to be much worse occupancies in India. Many hotels across the country are obviously already operating in gross operating losses. Industry is going to implement lots of cost-cutting measures, lots of salary reductions, lots of staff reductions. There will be a lot of shutting down of F&B. Hotels across India will end up breaching loan covenants with banks and financial institutions. I hope the banks and financial institutions at least give them a 6-month breather for the sector to kind of bounce back, and give them longer moratoriums than what the government has announced for more than 3 months. Containment hotels, it's going to take some time. I feel resorts again is going to be impacted till normalcy returns, and demand will be driven by the domestic leisure traveler, who will still look at traveling over the weekends, and I spoke about staycations catching up. On the investment side, there was hardly any equity in the hotel market. Anyways, there was only maybe 2 or 3 people who are actually looking at hotel from an FDI point of view, also any FDI money. What I believe is cash is king for the high net worth investors who are sitting on a lot of dry powder. A lot of high net worth individuals will start coming and looking at buying distressed hotel deals across the country. Limited lender appetite at present. There's going to be big challenges, at least in terms of looking at new lenders. Green shoots is not expected till 2021. Private equity will eventually come back into the sector and look at large portfolios of distressed opportunities. Right now, given all the things happening, given all the uncertainties happening, I don't think the private equity will also look at. From an industrial standpoint, let's look at industrial. We've seen office, residential, retail, hotels. Now let's look at what's going to happen on the industrial front. On the industrial front, rents expected to remain stable. On the logistics front, disruption in industrial activity in China obviously had an impact on neighboring countries because of the supply chain issues, how we are connected. B2C consumer logistics were impacted. Online shopping, all our online e-commerce clients, they're all doing well, which means there will be a lot more storage space required especially for groceries, which will also mean there will be a lot more in-city requirements. There's also challenges of labor shortage, which is there. Labor shortage also from a warehousing point of view, not just construction. That is also having a small impact. I think the omni-channel will again help the warehousing sector. Additionally, completion timelines are going to take time. Anyone of you who can influence state governments, can influence the central government, I think this is India's greatest opportunity to become a manufacturing hub. We won't get an opportunity better than this. If, let's say, even if 4 or 5 state governments can come together and work closely with the central government, create land, create approved land, don't get into any trouble, and make ease of doing business easier. I think this is that golden opportunity where India can become the next big manufacturing destination, as all companies today look at relocation and diversification of production bases. Look at this: India manufactures like 1% of mobile phones. China manufactures 50%. Even if we get 5% of that 50%, look at the amount of manufacturing setups we can have. E-commerce demand will continue. Cold storage will, the demand is going to go through the roof for obvious reasons. People will want storage. We also believe this is the time when there will be a lot of automation in warehouses and distribution centers. There will be a lot of robotics being used, automated guided vehicles, contactless deliveries. These are things which we're going to be seeing. So e-commerce guys, very bullish. FMCG guys, not too worried. Auto will get further impacted. White goods will again getting further impacted because it's a non-essential item. Developers feel this is a temporary issue in industrial. They are beginning to see deferral of rents from some occupiers. Short term, there will be force majeure issues, labor issues which will be there. But in the long run, we believe India becoming a big manufacturing hub for pharma, for engineering, for electronics, and as a manufacturing BCP, business continuity planning for manufacturing. This is that golden opportunity, and I so badly wish. I think it will help all our future generations if the government, the central government, can come together and look at 4 or 5 state governments and invest in that land, invest in make ease of doing business, invest in converting the land, invest in. We still hear approval. Getting approvals is still a challenge, even for industrial units. Now that's the second biggest challenge. Biggest challenge they say is getting land, and second biggest challenge they say is getting approvals. If they can fix these two, India could be the next big manufacturing destination. And that's the 4th time I'm saying it, but I'm very passionate about that space. And this is that opportunity. It's not going to happen overnight, even if it happens within 3-4 years. Again, on industrial, like I said, India becoming a manufacturing destination is very important. Rents is expected to be stable. There will be surge of online shopping going forward, and China issues will continue. A lot of companies going forward will look at localization compared to globalization. Make in India could really happen. We've been talking about Make in India, but nothing much has happened. This is again that time where Make in India can happen. A lot of companies will give up their supply chain to 3PL players, which is again good from a 3PL point of view. 40% of Indian warehousing demand comes from 3PL players. 28% comes from e-commerce players. So these are the two sectors which need to do well if this has to do well. Now let's move to the investment side. What's happening on the investment side? The last that's my last topic. We believe whatever on the FDI front, we have seen this in 2008-9. Whenever situations like this happen, they typically go back to their known markets and focus on income-producing properties. Now, what is income-producing? Market in products where income is stabilized, where like office assets. There will be a gradual return to normalcy. There is today everybody is looking at things with a very, very cautious eye. The government has to do something on the stimulus front, on the investment and infrastructure. That's something which is very required in the investment side. I hope there will be like what the India government has announced some things, but we need to look at what countries like US has done, what Europe is doing, what Canada is doing, what UK is doing. Some of those things we need to do. I know we are not a rich country. Somewhere we'll have to find the money more than ever before. We believe sale and leasebacks will happen on the capital markets front. There will be many corporates who will say, okay, I need cash flows. Let me sell my office, which I own now, and let me lease it back. NBFCs will further get impacted. There will be more NBFCs which will go bankrupt. and banks will obviously force people to sell, especially on the NPA side. First half, investment activity is going to be very slow. Companies will end up spending a lot more time on due diligence. There is obviously less practical ability to close deals. Extended transaction timelines. Previously, if deals would happen in 4 months, it's going to take 6 months or 8 months to happen. Please keep that in mind. Technology will be used to connect parties like we are connecting today. Hospitality and retail investments will be the most impacted. I mentioned this earlier also. Cross-border capital will become slow, especially on the new investments. Mainly because when they look at India, they need to be worry about emerging market risks. They also need to worry about currency fluctuations. We have seen how the currency has behaved in the last 20 days. Interest rates fluctuations, all these are challenges which I think will make cross-border a lot more scared about coming to India at this moment till things stabilize. Again, all these things which I just said now will lead to, it'll take more time for price discovery, because right now they don't know if this is the right price. Cap rates will have to go up. Office cap rates were at an 8% mark. Retail was a little lower. Industrial was at 8%. That will eventually end up going up, given all the challenges which I spoke about. Lenders struggling to price assets. The biggest worry is this the right price I'm paying, or is it going to go down further? But global credit is very, very high. Right now, the supply of credit is extremely high. And with all the quantitative easing, which America has just announced, the 2 trillion package, that supply of credit will increase globally. How much can we get in India? Needs to be we need to wait and watch. Income stability. This is the time when funds will again look at income stability, which means there is low variability in contracted income. So that's something they will look at. They will also look at operation criticality. So is this facility, if let's say a multinational company is located there, is it operationally critical for the multinational company? That's something they will look at before they look at. So income stability, operation criticality, and occupation density is also something they will look at. Going forward, occupation density, where a lot of people come in, there is a high, which obviously increases higher risk for contagion. That will also have a challenge from an investments point of view. We believe NBFC challenges will continue for the next maybe for a year. I don't see too much of silver lining there. Cash flow certainty, commercial office space will be the first choice. I mentioned that when things bounce back, it will be the first sector to come back. Developers who have taken land loans, you will be forced to liquidate those assets by your lenders. If you default, obviously you'll be forced to be ready, start planning for that, get good advice on what you need to do when you're forced to sell that. Existing investments, funds will focus a lot more on asset management. Flight to capital of global funds to safer markets. I don't know how safe India will be seen as, but typically what we saw in 2008-9 was also fund going back to their home countries, especially gateway cities like London and New York, when global downturns happen. Sovereign wealth funds, like I said, today are being impacted by sharp crude oil, sharp fall in crude prices, all that, and they also need the money back to go back to their home countries, because these people are calling up and saying, come back, and will they give it to a sovereign wealth fund, and this time will they give money to an NBFC, or will they worry about protecting the lives of their citizens? Answer is quite common sensical. Migrant labor issue will again have an issue, because all these projects are underwritten, and if it gets delayed 3-6 months, I hope this labor issue will get sorted in 3 months time. Disruption of supply chain again will have delay in buildings. NBFCs are facing a lot of cash crunch. All these shocks is the NPA levels in India is going to rise up significantly. Wholesale lending business, which has already been hit, will get hit more. Be ready for that. Funding opportunity for last miles will be an opportunity for NBFCs, but again the government needs to change that rule, because right now it's only the government last mile fund which have the ability to do a LIFO. I was looking at the number of loans which were given in 2018-19 and first quarter 2020, the number of developer loans, what they call wholesale lending, given in 2018 was nearly 1200 loans were given. In 2019, that 1200 became 700. And the first quarter of 2020, this also includes 2.5 months when COVID was not there. So 1200, 700, that dropped to 50 in the first quarter. From 700 of the full year of last year, that's dropped to 50 in the first quarter. So which was in 2018, 2,10,000 crores became 1,70,000 crores. And this year, less than 9,000 crores have been given as developer funding in the first 3 months of the year. So that's not great news. That's we have covered office, we have covered residential, we have covered retail, we have looked at hotels, we have looked at industrial, and we have also seen the investment market in the country. I hope the audience on this call, thank you for your time, and there is some takeaways for you, at least in terms of some ideas. It's not easy to predict. Whatever I presented today is based on a lot of research which we are doing, based on a lot of conversations I'm having with my colleagues, because we have specializations in all these asset classes. Is based on conversations I'm having with my international colleagues, with my clients, all that. But things are rapidly changing. If I was sitting here 3 weeks back, my talk would have been very different. If I was sitting here 2 weeks back, my talk would have been very different. I think maybe 1 month later we should have this again. Maybe my talk would be totally different again. So things are rapidly changing, and hope I could give you some pointers in some direction in terms of where things are heading. With that, I'll hand it over to Chirag Bhai, and thank you Shantilal ji and Chirag Bhai again for giving me this opportunity to present my thoughts around impact on COVID. Thank you.